What's up, everyone, and welcome to Project XTalk, an Xbox podcast, episode number 219, presented by Save the Game Media. I'm your host, Kevin, and on today's episode, we're talking all about Avowed. We also got some South of Midnight to talk about, and we will wrap up that state of play that happened yesterday because a lot of games are coming to Xbox this year. Before we get to that and more, I got to introduce my co-host, JamPackSam. How are you, my friend?
What's up, man? I'm doing very well. It has been absolutely crazy week. I just put a post out on Threads and Blue Sky where it's like in the past week, I've had the South of Midnight preview, the Killing Floor 3 preview. I did the Avowed review, which I just didn't even get to finish. And I'm not going to lie and say that I got too far into the game to like give it a rating because I want to give it the attention it deserves. But yeah, it's just been a wild week. Went to Florida last weekend. So it's like just all over the place. But I'm happy to be here. We have another Sam joining us, which is always nice. So that's exciting.
Yes, special guest gracing the green side of our network, Sam Heaney from No Limits, a PlayStation podcast, of course. And Are We Caught Up Yet? Our currently Marvel in review series, but you guys will get into other movies eventually. How are you, Sam?
I'm doing very well. I'm happy to be here. I don't know where the conversation is going to take us, but I'm interested to find out.
No one ever does. That's the joy of the show.
It'd be funny if like one of you just absolutely hates this game. You just came on here like, oh, can I come on and just rag on about it? Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I'm happy everyone's here. You guys have both played Avowed, but we will talk about that after we get into the show. Good to see some people hanging out in chat. Let's get through some housekeeping and then we'll jump right into it. This is Project XTalk. We're live every Thursday right here on youtube.com/Save the Game Media. If you can't catch us live, post every Friday morning on your favorite audio platform of choice. While you're over there, make sure to drop us that 5-star review. It does help us in the algorithm. If you want to support us even further, get early audio access to Save the Game Media content, exclusive bonus post shows, and monthly content. Head over to patreon.com/Save the Game Media. Choose the tier that's right for you, like our current supporters. So thank you to Fabulous Brianna, Rick Davis, Chad, Elderwoods Parker III, Silkenit, Lee Navarro, the Xbox Expansion Pass, Dave Harp, David Hotright, Lillian, Marcus O'Neill, Brendan Myers, Nikolai and Knight, Lindsay, Brianna's mom, Brianna's brother, and Dinglebomb. Thank you for your support. Appreciate each and every one of you. If you are interested, we still have that 7-day free trial you can check out. See if our exclusive content is something you drop $1 for. I don't say the price often. It is $1 a month gets you all the extra content, post shows from us, No Limits, and your monthly exclusive show and a shout out. So I know times are tough, but if you can, it means the world. All right, let's jump right into it with what have you been playing except for Avowed? All right, except Avowed. I want to know everything else. JamPackSam, we start with you, of course.
Yeah. So I, like I said, I went to Florida last week and I have an MSI Claw 8 AI Plus that I am using for a review. MSI sent one out. Big thanks to them. And so I'm working on that over the next month or so. And so with that has come a lot of Xbox app games on the PC side, a lot of PC games on the Steam side as well. And the two that I spent time with this weekend were Citizen Sleeper, which I've been like, that's like my coffee game, where it's just my chill game. And it was a blast playing that for a couple of hours whenever I was down in Florida. Really enjoyed just the way that it is. It's just a really good, cozy game. I love the storytelling. I love the world they're building there. And it's just a really, really special game. So I'm excited to continue playing that. And then also Balatro. I'm finally into it, getting real into it. It's such a good game now that I'm really getting into the flow of it. But I have my claw on the airplane, and the hour-and-a-half flight felt like 20 minutes because I'm just going through playing a couple of rounds of Balatro. So I'm really enjoying those two. And then, of course, lots of Avowed over the past week. So we'll talk about that more. But those are my two games that I've been primarily playing.
So before we jump off to other Sam here, and every time I say other Sam, I think of that David Beckham commercial where he sits down with his parents. It's like, you're other David, Yeah. Citizen Sleeper. This is a game I've been eyeing. Is this a game I would like, Sam?
Citizen Sleeper?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think so because I feel like you like a little bit more of an engaging kind of thing. Like you like doing something that's got some action to it. This is really like I would call it like light matching if you want to look at the dice rolls that you've got with like some of the stuff that's on like the second layer of the eye where you're trying to hack into the mainframe or whatever you want to call it. But other than that, it really is just going from point A to point B, doing like daily tasks with the energy that you've got, which we do in real life too. So, you know, probably not going to be your favorite game, but if you get it for like a couple of bucks, I don't see any harm in giving it a shot. Or they're both on Game Pass right now, so like you can play them there too. So yeah.
And I'm with you on the Balatro train. I continuously just like lunch breaks, I'll just boot a game up. Like I got 30 minutes and then like 40 minutes goes by. I'm like, ooh, I need to get back to work.
Yeah, it'll just eat your time up, man. It's actually really wild because I didn't think that I would be super into it, but the more that I play it, the more that I'm like, okay, this is literally just like poker with extra steps to it, and I really enjoy that. So it's great.
Have you won a run yet?
I have.
Yeah, let's go.
The red hand, I think, or not the red hand. It was one of the special hands that I think makes it like slightly easier.
I did the blue one. It gives you an extra like.
I think that's what I did. I did the blue one, so I did win a run with that. But I had like an Unreal thing where it was like a huge 20 times multiplier on every hand, so it was just inevitable. But now I'm trying to win with like the basic hand without any kind of modifiers, and I'm having a tougher time with that. But I'm just enjoying the ride.
You know what my favorite Joker is in Balatro is the red card, which I don't know if you saw that one, but every time you skip a booster pack, it's like a +4 multiplier.
I did see that one, yeah.
So I just I just spend all my money and I'll get like 160 multiplier. Like that's the card that's like getting me. Oh, you're gonna get 40,000 points from this one hand. I'm like, let's go.
Yeah, it's very nice, very nice. But I'm having a great time. Looking forward to playing more.
Awesome. Well, we'll jump over to Sam Heaney. What have you been playing besides Avowed, good sir?
This is usually on No Limits where I list off like a huge deluge of titles, but unfortunately my time has been mostly preoccupied by Avowed over the past few weeks. So the couple of things I will point out are I'm slowly chipping away hour by hour, getting a little bit of time with Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. I'm a big puzzle guy, deduction, and if it's a quirky little indie that does those things, I'm there. So I think I'm actually at like 96% complete. So I should probably be able to round that off in a sitting or two. Thoroughly recommended. Really, really unique, interesting. Kind of like Inscription, if you know that game, where it starts out as a card game, but it's also not just a card game. I'll say that much and leave it there. Yeah, so Lorelei is the main thing, and then I've dipped a little bit. This is really weird. Into a game called Waltz of the Wizard, which is a VR game.
Oh, so you made that up.
It's a VR title, primarily just a fun little sandbox thing. Nothing too special. You're just, stood in front of you're in like a laboratory, you're brewing potions, you're casting different spells, you're making magic and doing all of this. But the reason that I've jumped into it is it's actually the very first PSVR 2 title that supports hand tracking. So it's completely controller free. Because of the internal cameras on the PSVR 2 headset, you can now track your hands in real time. And interact with the game in that way, and I've been dabbling with that, and it is weird. Works incredibly well as long as you're well lit, but it is very strange. It's something I haven't experienced yet, going controllerless in a VR space, casting magic as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what kind of game is it?
It really. I can't even think of something. The best way I could describe it is imagine a VR version of something like Doodle God, There's really simple.
Something I have no idea.
Really? Okay. So Doodle
you don't know
God
what Doodle God is?
No.
Thank
man.
you, of course.
Right? Sam, please, would you inform me what Doodle God?
So Doodle God, it's like a mobile game initially that is just you mixing two different elements together to create things, and then you can mix the two things you created together to make other new things, and it just sort of snowballs from there. It's essentially the same. You're just stood in front of a table and you've got tons of things to interact with and chuck into a brewing pot, and you can make different things and craft your own spells. And it's not really a game per se. It's more of just like a sandboxy experience, but still it's I wanted to do the hand tracking thing, and because it works so well, I'll probably return to it. So
cool. That's awesome. I
Yeah.
didn't know people were still playing PSVR 2, to be honest. But
there are dozens of us, Kev. There are dozens of us.
you
I was gonna say the same joke.
genuinely might be an accurate number, though.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, Ghostly Guides. It's the dude from SpongeBob. Close. Yes.
Doodle Bob almost.
Yeah, Doodle Bob. I'm familiar with him, but
Ahoy Manoi.
all right, guys. Well, I'll keep mine short because I really haven't played that many games this week. In fact, I've only played one, and that is Spec Ops: The Line. Of course,
Phenomenal
I'd
game.
like to. Oh, okay. You're both familiar with this game. My first time playing it, I got it on Steam. I think it was free like a year or so ago. And I wanted to play it on my Ally, but I kept trying and it kept giving me like a critical error failure. Like it wouldn't boot. And I have no idea why. So I played it on my PC and I beat it in literally like 2 sittings. It's not a very long game, but man, what an engaging third person shooter. Like I was sitting there, I'm like, this is like military Gears of War. Like that's how I felt playing it. Like you got the run, you got the cover based shooting, you got the going up and stomping people in the face, hitting them with your gun. Like I'm like, okay, this is very Gears of War coded. I'm here for it. But then they hit you with like a crazy, I don't want to ruin it, even though it's like 13 years old, but like a nice twist ending there at the end. And I was saying like, I didn't look at the achievements, and if you haven't for some reason played this game, I recommend don't look at the achievements, because after the twist and then you go look at them and you like realize, like you read them, you're like, oh my god, like I was a fool, I was an idiot playing this game. But really enjoyed it. Certainly one that like you should probably play. Again, it's only like 6 hours long, so make time. Very good twist, very good narrative, impactful story there.
Yeah, Spec Ops: The Line's phenomenal. And I number one, I think it's like I would consider that required reading almost of like you should really play Spec Ops: The Line, especially if it's on PC. Did it get relisted? I feel like it got delisted at one point.
It got delisted. I think they were giving it away for free or something before it got delisted. So I grabbed it at some point.
Yeah, I mean, no matter how you play it, I know it's on the 360 as well. That's how I've played it a couple of times. But I'm also absolutely mortified and horrified that it is indeed 13 years old. So that is really giving me an existential crisis right now. But thanks for that. I appreciate it.
For some reason, I thought it was older. And then when I booted up and it said 2012, I was like, oh, like this game's not nearly as old as I thought it was. And then I realized, oh, it's 13 years ago.
Yeah. Tough.
Ghostly Guides. Did you not know the twist before playing? I've had it spoiled so many times. I didn't know the twist before playing. No, I knew there was a twist, but I didn't know what the twist was. So
one of the very first games I remember subverting my expectations. You know, it sort of presents itself as a very generic third-person brown shooter, and it is, but it's also most certainly not. So yeah, I agree with Sam. Like, you really should, if you care about writing and structure in games at all, with a little bit of fun cover shooting, then Spec Ops: The Line, you can't really get much better.
I thought it was like, how do I say this? I thought it was weird that the game was like published by 2K, right? Or Take Two or whatever. Like, and I was like, they don't make these kind of games, like, right? Like this is, I'm not familiar. And it was also from some studio I never even heard of. And I was like, how is this? Did this studio do anything afterwards? Like, I don't know. I went down a whole rabbit hole, like just being amazed by this game.
Yeah, pretty good one.
Better third-person shooting than Last of Us 2. Am I right, boys?
It really is crazy to look at what they put together, where it's like they did Spec Ops: The Line, a game called Dreadnought, and then The Cycle and The Cycle Frontier, which I'm pretty sure both have shut down at this point. So it's like,
heard of those.
They really were just kind of like, hey, Spec Ops: The Line is going to be a banger, and then we're gonna do something with other stuff. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure Spec Ops, until they delisted it, was one of those games that would like constantly show, like it was always selling just like a few thousand copies every quarter for like no reason.
Yeah.
All right. Well, why don't we jump into what everyone's here for, our Avowed Impressions. So, Avowed, reviews have dropped, and the game is currently out in early access. If you're willing to pony up that $25 for the premium edition, currently sitting at an 81 on OpenCritic at the time of reading this. Obsidian seems to have another fantastic RPG on their hands. Most reviews highlight Obsidian's fantastic choice and consequence system, while some are feeling let down by the overall narrative. However, as we mentioned, both of you have played the game, so I gotta know, JamPackSam, how many hours have you put into Avowed, and what are your overall general thoughts? We can dive into specifics after, but I just want to know, like, how are you feeling about the game?
Yeah, so I am currently only 15 hours in. So I kind of like prefaced everything that I did today. I put out a TikTok and a reel and a YouTube short because I didn't feel prepared to do a full review, obviously. But I'm getting into it. I'm getting into the real meat of the game. I've played enough to have an opinion on it, and I think it's a really good game. I think it's the RPG that I wanted from Obsidian. I think the story is engaging. I love the world of the Living Lands, and I know we'll get more into specifics, but overall, it's meeting the expectations that I had, and I'm excited to play more. So, in today's day and age where you've got new games coming out every week and tons of stuff vying for my attention, me wanting to go after this podcast and go back and dive back in and get back into it and form a holistic opinion, I'm excited to play more. So that's my hot take right off the bat of how I'm feeling about it so far.
Awesome. Sam Heaney, same questions to you. How long have you played? Overall thoughts?
Yeah. So to preface, I didn't get a code for review. I'm working on it right now in terms of guides coverage for IGN. That is to say, I am currently registering. My play counter for Avowed is 108 hours.
Jesus.
Now, to be very clear, that is not how long the game takes to complete. I still have not finished the game, but the nature of my work and what I have to do, I have to reload a lot. I have to try out every different choice, every different consequence. I have to take things very slow. So yeah, that's not really accurate, and I wouldn't really have a way of describing to you exactly how many hours I've physically meaningfully put into the game. I believe there's 4 regions. I'm most of the way through the 3rd. It's interesting because I think there are many things about Avowed that make me want to say that unfortunately it's another game from Xbox Game Studios that doesn't fully stick the landing. But I am simultaneously, I believe 2 things can be true at once. I also think that it's probably my favorite Xbox game from this generation.
Wow. Okay.
I think it's incredibly strong in the ways that matter. And I think that a lot of the critiques are well-founded, but maybe it's the way that I'm having to play the game where those problems aren't quite as prominent in my experience. So ultimately, I think it's very strong.
Awesome. Okay, two good reviews. Sam, just for the record, you have the highest play count I've heard of any. I've listened and read a lot of reviews today. No one has gotten. I think it was like 60, 70 was the highest before that. But Jesus. So you have not rolled credits.
No.
Okay.
No, I would have, obviously, if I was playing
I'd hope
normally,
so.
but I have to do literally everything, every iteration.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Not jealous of that. I would not like. I appreciate it because you're the guy I Google and I try to find.
Of course.
But yeah, that is definitely a different kind of way to play a game like that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I would. You know how I play games, all right? Yeah, side quests are optional. I'll do them if I want to do them, but that is crazy to me. All right, well, let's get into some of the specifics. So we have some questions. Ghostly Guides, who's in the chat, says, do you get a lot of choice, not just in how you build your character, but also the story and the actions you can take? So let's start off with talking about character builds, and then we'll talk about the choice and consequence throughout the story. So JamPackSam, what's your character like? You know, how do you go about building them? And just tell me about your character. How you playing this game?
Yeah, so when you start up the game, you don't really have to pick like a class, like a warrior or a wizard or like any of that kind of stuff. You pick a background that more so shapes the narrative. So I'm a noble scion, I think is the way you pronounce it. Um, and so that just kind of frames the way that your character fits into the overall narrative and the background. You get some new dialogue choices from there. But you can also choose kind of a proficiency that allocates your ability points early on in the game. So you can be a little bit better at one thing or another. And so, of course, being the type of player that I am, I forget what the actual labels are called, but I went for the more I can deal some damage and take some damage kind of thing, where I'm a little bit heavier of a punch, but I'm a little bit less apt with words kind of thing.
Neanderthal is how I like to.
Yeah, something like that. So that's kind of the build that I've went with, and I've allocated the ability points accordingly, where I'm just really trying to deal some health, or I'm really trying to deal some damage and maintain some health, which I'm excited to hear from Sam what he thinks about that, because game gets real hard as you're working your way through some of these areas, to the point that I'm like, man, this is really frustrating, and I am adamant about not dropping the difficulty from normal to easy. Like, I am going to play this game through on normal, but it becomes very difficult because of the gear system. But yeah, that's kind of my setup, where I come from a nobility background, and I have a kind of uppity vibe about me, but don't talk to me because I'll deck you. That's kind of my character.
Okay, awesome. Very cool. I love that. It's similar to how I made my Outer Worlds character when I booted that up. I was like, all right, I want a bunch of health, I want a bunch of strength. I don't need intelligence at all, like hacking. Yeah, it's science. We're not a man of science. We're a man of getting stuff done with our fists. So I'm excited to probably make my character very similar to that in terms of how I play, but I don't know what the background. Sam Heaney, how about you? What is your character like?
So I am an arcane scholar,
Nerd.
which primarily that stuff realistically is sort of flavor text more so than anything else. But it does provide some unique selections in terms of dialogue, and they pop up more often than you might think. I've been I see Ghostly asking in the chat about, can I play as a mage from the start? You can. And that has been my build the entire time. You are allowed 2 primaries and 2 offhands. So, for example, I have a wand to cast basic spells, and then a grimoire in my offhand, which is a book full of more advanced spells on cooldowns, and then I can switch out to a sword and a shield. So you can have two builds simultaneously, I guess, but realistically you're gonna have to invest your upgrade resources in one more so than the other. Yeah, spellcasting, it's really fun. And I suppose, Sam, I haven't run into those issues that you've mentioned about the difficulty spikes. I've seen that in other reviews as well, but then that probably is down to just the way that I'm having to play the game, where I am going everywhere, doing everything. So I'm probably earning more XP than most people, over leveling, unlocking tons of abilities, finding all the uniques, stuff like that. And that probably means, I mean, I've still hit the struggle bus a few times, but ultimately I think I've breezed through more so than most other people seem to have. So
yeah, I think that for me, whenever I'm talking about the difficulty, so to go into the way that I've kind of built out the gear that I'm using, like Sam said, we have the 2 different kind of loadouts you can have. So I'm doing a dagger in my right hand and then a grimoire in the other. So I'm kind of like doing the mage approach as well. And you can find different grimoires with different levels of abilities and stuff like that. Some are more powerful than others. You can upgrade, of course, all this gear and your armor and whatnot. But I really am partial to the ice spells as well, because the freezing and then doing like kind of the bold true ram of people can deal a lot of damage. There's cool combinations like that. But I was talking to my fiance about it, she's also been playing it. We can't really, it's on my Xbox, but she's been playing a little bit more than me, probably like 30 hours. So she's been getting into it as well. And so we've been talking about it. And she is, I don't want to say mainlining, but she's doing the natural gameplay process of doing some main missions, finding a side quest, going on the side quest. You want to get back on the main path. So she's like playing the game that anybody would play it, and running into a lot of difficulty to the point that she dropped it down to easy. So I'm kind of on the flip side, and we were talking about this earlier, where I feel like Obsidian has intentionally designed this game to incentivize you to really explore and to feel like you need to go find different ways to level up. Like, I feel like I'm at a wall right now where I'm getting towards the third area of the game, and I don't want to say I'm mainlining the story, but I'm definitely wanting to get through it because I'm interested in the narrative. But I feel compelled to, go check behind your waterfalls, see what that dude over there in the town's got to say. Like, I'm starting to kind of get to the point where I need to go find other things to do because I want to get new ability points. I want to find new gear because I feel like when I go into these areas, I'm just going to get absolutely hammered by these enemies. And it's to the point where if I wasn't open-minded and wanting to explore this world, I would be getting very frustrated, because if I'm just trying to get through Avowed and move on to the next thing before Assassin's Creed Shadows comes out, I would definitely get hung up here. On the flip side, more meat on the bone for me to like go explore stuff. So it's a bigger game than I think I was originally expecting it to be, for that reason of that it encourages you to go find every single little thing. So I feel like I'm in a roundabout way trying to get more of the world because it's forcing me to get more of the world, which I'm cool with, but other people might not. So it's kind of been my take so far on the difficulty.
It's really interesting because I have heard about the difficulty in some other reviews, as you guys were mentioning, and it seems like people that do invest in the side content seem to have less issues. And I wonder if Obsidian intentionally designed it that way, or if that's a leftover product of when it was like a multiplayer game, because they did mention like they originally had this idea for co-op, and it almost feels like maybe they didn't tweak the balance enough from that original design, because I find it hard to believe that Obsidian would want the game to be like difficult on the normal mode, because like when I played the Outer Worlds, like there were challenges, but I never felt like, oh, I have to go do all the side content in order to progress.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, I said that I breeze through because I'm doing everything, but the interesting point is that the enemies don't actually scale with you.
Which I
so
like.
Enemies have like difficulty tiers assigned to them, and you can see that next to their health bar. And it seems that once you reach the first major settlement, most enemies in the open world go to level 2. And then as you get to the second region, they go to 3. And then as you go to the third region, they go to 4, on and on. And that is why you have to upgrade your gear to reach that level, that same level as the enemies, so that you can adequately deal damage. And I think that that's where my experience has come in, where I've got enough resources to keep my gear almost immediately. Once the enemy level rises, when I reach a new area, I can immediately get myself to that level. So I'm doing all the side content anyway, but I technically probably wouldn't have to, in the same way that Sam does, where he's sort of incentivized to explore to be able to upgrade. I'm sort of upgraded off the bat. So I don't think either play style is inferior, though. I think that both work, because I'm having fun continually sort of equally meeting my match with enemies because of the way I've played. But as you say, Sam, like, you're incentivized to explore. And I think that one of the real strengths of Avowed is the world and the amount of stuff that you can find out there. So yeah, it's a win-win, really, in my opinion, I think.
All right. Well, let's shift gears from characters and exploration to the story. Companions can go in here as well, and choice and consequence. So, how are you finding the narrative? We can talk main narrative, any side quests. Obviously, no spoilers here, but like, is it engaging? Are you enjoying the companion quests, the NPCs, like the stuff they want you to do, or is it more like, ooh, the side quest is pretty like, fetch questy, and those are the ones that are like less engaging? I want to know like what's the quality here, Sam. I'll throw it to JamPackSam first. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've played so far, I think the main quest is the most interesting part of the whole experience for me so far. And I think it's got a lot of I want to say like it hits some of the tropes, like it's not anything that's, gonna win an award for like, most innovative storytelling or anything like that. However, the way that it's done is great. I enjoy it. I enjoy the characters, and I feel like they've got a little bit more personality than we've seen with a lot of other games that have come out recently. And we talked a couple of weeks ago about how I never want to compare one thing to another, because you want to kind of assess something as its own product, as it should be. But inevitably, I compare this to Dragon Age: The Veilguard, which I didn't have a good time with, and I thought the writing was very poor overall. I think Avowed immediately was off to a much stronger start for me in terms of the way the story is delivered, the narrative, all of that. And so I've been really enjoying it a lot more. The side quests, you get a lot of fetch quests. You get a lot of like the check in the box kind of stuff. But if you want that lore and you get into it, there's a lot of dialogue. You can really get to know these characters. You can see how the different, I guess you would call them factions kind of in the world. Not like there's a faction system, but different groups that are going against one another, like farmers versus whatever your thieves of the area might be. You can kind of make choices on the outcome of the side missions that can affect the way that the person that initially gave it to you reacts. So stuff like that adds more choice, and it's not just go pick 3 tomatoes and run them back to me. So it's like it's a mix of both, where there's clearly an objective you got to do, go get this thing from this guy, bring it back, and you probably make a choice along the way. And so for me, I'm cool with that, because like that adds enough to where it's not just me checking boxes and getting through the quest. It adds a little bit of a narrative to it. But the main quest is still the one that obviously has the most oomph to it. It's got the most robustness, if you will.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I do. So I can deal with fetch quests if, like you're saying, there's something you have to make a choice along the way that can affect the outcome. Because there, again, I don't mean to reference the Outer Worlds so much, but that is my Obsidian like touch point recently, where you had those things. And main quest, side quest. I know one thing that always sticks in my mind in the main quest is obviously like early in the game you have to go to a power plant and you get to decide like which faction you're going to send the power to, right? Like that sticks in my brain. Like you got to talk to a bunch of people and figure out like what's the best choice, and then you got to ultimately make that decision. And that's stuff that I really like in games. So Sam Heaney, how are you feeling 100 something hours in, doing every side quest, right? Like seeing multiple outcomes, right? Because you're reloading for the guides. I imagine you're like, oh, well, what happens if I make this choice? How are we feeling about choice and consequence impacting the overall world?
Yeah. I guess I'm raining on Sam's parade. I'm almost the exact opposite. Where I feel like the main story is serviceable. I think the premise conceptually is very cool. And to caveat, I'm not a Pillars of Eternity guy. So caveat that there may well be some nuance to the story that is lost on me. But ultimately Avowed is, I think, set up as a standalone game where you don't have to be a Pillars of Eternity guy to jump in. They do chuck that lore at you though. Jesus.
They do.
There's so much terminology. You've got a glossary in game. But anyway, I think the main story thematically, like the idea of why you're in the Living Lands, what's going on, the setup is really good, and I think like the opening hours are strong. I am yet to see anything meaningfully materialize in the main story.
Ooh, okay.
And it may well come together in a stronger sense, and this is subjective, of course. But as a guy who, I mean, my job is literally to cover the side quests of Avowed. So they have been my primary focus. But I do think that, I mean, Sam's absolutely right that there is a fair amount of fetch questy type objectives in the side quests. But I actually think that if you're looking for the choice and consequence, it's in the side content. It may well be self-contained to just within that quest that you get the choice and the consequence, and it doesn't have necessarily a profound, deep impact on the game at large. But most of the time when you're making choices, it is in the side content, as far as I've seen. And I think that if you like Obsidian writing and scenarios and not necessarily like emergent moments, but sort of quirky, off the ball, unexpected things, the side quests are really where you find that stuff. The main quest line, as you might expect, plays it quite straight. And the side stuff is where you find some of the more quirky, humorous things, the left turns that you aren't expecting. And naturally, they lead you to some of the more interesting locations in the Living Lands as well. So, yeah, that's not to say the main quest is bad. Like, it's not. I think it's just relatively cookie cutter for a fantasy RPG.
Okay.
It gives me vibes of like, do you pick the Stormcloaks or the Imperials in Skyrim? You know,
Of course,
you kind of have,
totally remember that.
do you align yourself with the bad guys or the good guys? And there's this sort of like omniscient other thing going on in the background, and you're like, what's this? Yeah, it hasn't gotten too deep yet, but
So Ghostly Guides has a question in the chat. Can I actually be evil? One of the biggest reasons I disliked Veilguard was even the mean choices was friendly and nice.
I'm going to jump in and say, unfortunately not. That is one of the biggest bummers of this. And to be clear, there are plenty of like jerk options. You can really be a jerk in the dialogue.
I heard you can burn down one of your companions' houses.
You can, but it doesn't affect really your relationships with anyone. It doesn't have a detrimental impact on your gameplay experience. It doesn't lock you out of any side quests or content. Obviously, that certain scenarios could roll out where a character dies and then you won't see them in the town or something. But even if that is the case, you wouldn't have been able to interact with them after the fact anyway. So it's.
I was gonna, not to interrupt. Sorry, I was gonna ask. No. So like in the Outer Worlds, I could kill like people that were in the main quest, right? And your companions would react. So like I killed like the mayor of one town, and my companion freaked out and said like, oh my God, what have you done? Like, I can't be associated with you anymore. And I basically told her to shut her mouth and that like she's coming with me. And then she just accepted that, and she was my companion the rest of the game. So is it similar to that, where like you can do those evil things, but at the end of the day, the companion is like kind of there?
It's not even to that extent.
That's a bummer.
You at least from my testing, you can't kill important quest giving NPCs or anything.
Oh, what? That's like Obsidian though.
I know. And that's sort of why I opened the way I did, where I think depending on your perspective, it's either great or just sort of all right. But you can still choose like the renegade options in dialogue, if you will, and that will result in some funny moments. And it may make some people that you can keep passive, it can make them hostile, but that's going to be probably people that were going to end up hostile one way or another anyway.
Okay, interesting. All right.
I mean, for me, I always play the good guy, so like I haven't really even tested the bad options that much anyway. But Sam, did you play Veilguard at all? Did you do any coverage on that, or did you get into it?
I didn't cover it. I got maybe 2/3 of the way through.
Yeah, I mean, so far with my experience in Avowed, I feel like the choices that I'm making in Avowed, to your point, like I don't think they're doing like Evil Shepherd level of like changes if we're comparing them in that way. But I do feel like in Avowed, they're delivered in a way that makes them feel a little bit more impactful, at least in terms of the narrative, like the story, the way that it's delivered a little bit. But yeah, I know that later on, I mean, getting deeper into the story, I think my fiance hit a couple of points where she's like, oh, the choices actually like make a difference in the way the things flow around. But yeah, it's interesting to hear that as you get on, it's not like changing fundamentally the way the game plays.
It's I would say Avowed dabbles more in the morally gray than the good or bad. Okay. Almost every situation, they provide a very good justification for why you would choose either option, to end things. And that may have a sizable impact towards the end of the game, but not spoiling anything, for example, but literally within the first 15 minutes of the game, you meet someone and you can choose to either free them or not. And if you do, they will then appear in a side quest a little later on. If you don't, they won't. I haven't seen that level of reactivity in most of the other main quests or side quests, which is interesting. But then I haven't found everything yet, so there may be more of that. We just haven't stumbled on it yet.
Okay. That was a good discussion about choice and consequence, guys. So better than Veilguard, but still room for improvement, especially by Obsidian standards. Is kind of where I'm landing after hearing you guys talk about it. I'm excited to test it out for myself. Is kind of where I'm at the moment. Like hearing you guys has not dissuaded my excitement to jump in Tuesday. I don't know what time that unlocks on Tuesday. Hopefully it's like early in the day so I can just play it, But anything else we want to touch on? I have one last question, but I wanted to open it up and see if there's anything else you guys want to call out about Avowed before we move on.
The thing I want to go back to is something Sam mentioned earlier, is the sense of exploration in the game. And I think that is what has really stuck with me in the time that I've spent with it. And what I'm excited to continue going back to is that I think that for me, this game is best played where you go in a direction and just kind of see what you find. Immediately when I booted it up, everybody talks about the waterfall thing where it's like, there's definitely something behind the waterfall. But I feel like in Avowed, literally using that example, I have gone behind waterfalls where I'm like, wow, there's a lot back here. Like there's a whole lot of stuff to do back here. And I think that kind of is a nice contrast to what a lot of games do, where they're checking the box of like, oh, you found a loot box back here. Behind waterfalls or any kind of like a little ditch or a hole in the cavern or whatever you might find an entire new area to go explore and a new little branch to go off on, and who knows what you're going to find back there. But I think that's what I really enjoy the most, is just like you'll hear something glimmering and you'll go find a cool loot box. And then all of a sudden you're getting surrounded by these giant spiders you've got to fight. And then, you're running and jumping and there's a little bit of platforming in some areas where you're getting up to certain, new heights and whatnot, where you can kind of explore in that way. Definitely not a platformer, obviously, but I just think that it really does well because it encourages you to explore the world. It is worth exploring. It has been my experience so far. So I think it does really well in that, in a game, in a way that I haven't seen a game do it in quite a while. So that was a refreshing thing that I got from Avowed so far.
Yeah, it's a very dense game. It's not open world, it's open zone, but each of the regions has so much stuff where you will be walking for maybe 30 seconds and you'll stumble on something new, whether it's a new location or an enemy or a little platforming section that you can reach a new chest or something. And I think that is it. I've seen this said in some reviews that it sort of scratches the Elder Scrolls itch.
Mm-hmm.
It is providing that sort of sense of discovery that I felt personally was lacking in something like Starfield, where you can just wander off and you don't know what you're going to find, and it's going to be something that surprises you more often than not. And the last thing I'll say, I did mention it very briefly, the uniques in this game are probably the main selling point for me. So the uniques are either armor or weapons that are, one of a kind. And you get them as quest rewards, or you can find them just exploring. You can stumble upon them. Some of them are very well hidden. So I'd be surprised if people found them, unless you go to IGN.com. A little plug there. And some of them do really cool things. Not only do all of them look visually unique, but they have very, very, very cool effects. So if you like the kind of random things that you kind of think, am I the only person that's found this? Avowed is full of those moments. Mm-hmm. So if you like that, then play this game.
All right. Well, I'll just end it with one last question from Alpaca Tom. Says, regarding Avowed, do you think this is a game you're willing to play again after your initial playthrough, or is it a one and done?
I mean, for me, I'm typically a one and done guy in general. Like I rarely go back and replay games, especially story games. Like I'll go back and like Prestige and Call of Duty or whatever, because the grind just keeps on going. But I'm always a one and done guy. I don't think that right now there's enough oomph behind Avowed for me to go back again. Like I don't feel incentivized to do an entirely new run, because I can kind of predict where things are going, and I'd rather head over to IGN.com and see what the different branches for the endings bring. So that's just me, but that's not to speak necessarily to the type of game Avowed is, more so to the player that I am, I would say.
Yeah, I'm probably aligned with Sam on this one. I think I'm certainly not a one and done guy. I return to stuff quite often. I don't think that there is probably enough. I mean, it sounds antithetical to what we've been talking about. I don't know that there's enough actual substantive meat on the bone that would justify another full playthrough, at least not for probably a few years at the very least. Also, just because of the abilities you have in terms of switching up your build whenever you want, you can kind of do whatever you want whenever you want. So it's not like you have to really spec into one thing. You can reset your skill points and everything and have a play around. So I think once you've gotten if the main story wraps up in the third act in a way that is super compelling and presents clear consequences, then I might be inclined, but I don't think that's going to be the case. So
okay. All right. Well, I will look forward to sharing some thoughts next week after I have played it. Again, it comes out Tuesday the 18th, unless you get that early access edition, which you can get now for, I think, $25, $22 if you got Game Pass Ultimate, little discount there. So, all right. That has been our Avowed coverage. Why don't we jump to our next topic? South of Midnight previews. So creators, including our very own JamPackSam here, got to preview Compulsion's upcoming game, South of Midnight. Highlights from previews I've read seem to indicate that the art style, music, and atmosphere are absolutely fantastic. The traversal is fun and fluid, but the combat can feel basic and repetitive. But Sam, I want to know your thoughts. How are you feeling about South of Midnight? He says, totally forgetting that he definitely didn't watch Sam's video, you know, like I have no idea what you're about to say.
Yeah, I did some coverage on this, and huge thanks to Xbox for giving the chance to play early. It wasn't like a remote preview or anything. I literally have just played it. Chapter 3 of the game, so it was just a vertical slice of about an hour, I would say, of gameplay. And I really enjoyed what I played, but I think the overview you gave kind of reflects my thoughts on it, where the South of Midnight experience that I've had so far, it really shines in that the music ties in with the world, ties in with the story, ties in with the characters, ties in with the art style. It creates this kind of experience that I think, when it comes to the type of game that South of Midnight is meant to be, it's a very art style game. It's a very artistic approach on a game that also relies on combat to deliver its story. And I think that's where it kind of falls flat for me so far. The way that I phrased it in my review is, I'm interested to see how the combat evolved up until chapter 3 and where the combat goes after chapter 3. Because if it's 8 to 10 hours of what I had, that will be the weakest part of South of Midnight. I'm calling it right now, of that it really is just your basic hitting these enemies, attacking, getting the health bar down, doing a finisher, and then washing and repeating, and then you kill the knot or whatever you want to call it. You unravel it, and then you move on to the next thing. And that's not to say that it's bad. I think that it's just, we've been spoiled by so many other ways of doing combat now that it now shines a little bit more of a light on how basic it is. With all of that being considered, again, paying attention to the type of experience that Compulsion is known for, which, going to their about page, they're making hallucinatory experiences, is the way they phrase it. And South of Midnight is a game that's inspired by Southern folklore. You can feel that in the way the stories are done. And I don't want to like spoil anything for the people getting into it, but if you start playing the game, the music tells the story of the characters you meet in a way that's very impactful, and in a way that I don't think many other games have done. Any other game that I've ever played has done, now that I think about it. And so if you lean into that and you want to learn more about the stories and see this experience that Hazel's going through, and really take time to listen to the message that South of Midnight's bringing, which again is kind of apparent in the chapter I played, but I don't want to spoil anything. That's where the enjoyment's going to come from this. I think that it's going to be a really great Game Pass game. Like, I think it's a very solid Game Pass game. I am curious to see how the reception is after it's out, once people have played through the entire thing. And again, my hunch is that the combat is going to be what really holds it back from a lot of people from greatness.
Okay, interesting. So you're certainly in line with most of the previews I've read or listened to. Of course, I'm trying to think of a comparison. I know you actually made this comparison, but Hi-Fi Rush, right? Another smaller title from a former Xbox studio at this point, but that game really excelled in its combat. It had the DMC flashy style. Can you, and I don't know how much what your preview, like what you're allowed to say or not, but like, what are the abilities like in South of Midnight? Like what is the actual combat loop?
Yeah, so the way that I was playing, and I mean, based on what we saw with the skill tree, it seems like it doesn't go too much deeper than this, but I could be wrong on that. So your core attacks are just a basic attack of like a light attack. You can hold down the X button and it becomes kind of a heavy. And so that for me was almost like a area of attack where it's like a little road of attack damage, if you will. It was almost like a projectile kind of thing. But then you've got your special abilities of push, pull, and weave. And so push pushes enemies away, also deflects projectiles. Pull brings enemies closer so you can get a couple of hits in. And weave is kind of like a stun. So they stay locked in one spot. You can go up, deal some damage. And then at the end of all of that, once you've whittled down that health bar, you have unravel. Within that, you've also got different enemy types. So you've got some that are a little bit faster, some that are a little tankier, some that are almost like hubs that shoot out wasp that come at you and deal damage as well. So that's kind of the overview, where the enemies add some variety, the attacks add a little bit of variety, but overall it's still like, that's the setup that you've got. That's kind of the experience that I had across the board. So I wouldn't say there's a ton of depth to the different abilities or the skill tree, but for this type of game, like, I don't really want it to have too much more than that. Like, I would like a little bit of variety in the combat, but not a deep, huge RPG skill tree.
And this is like this is more of a linear game, right? Like it's not like you have an open world to explore, right?
So I wouldn't say it's an open world. It's more of like a linear level. You can go back and forth, and there's some exploration here. So you'll go around gathering up different collectibles you can find, and you can use the resources from that to upgrade your skill tree. So they incentivize you to go around, break up a stack of twigs, and go down this little path, and you'll find whatever you find down there. Then come back out and go along your way. So they encourage you to do a little bit of level exploration, a good bit of platforming as well, which shocked me. Like, there's this, actually, for me, it was almost like a 50-50 mix of platforming and exploration with combat, which, I mean, I'm happy that that's the case, because it's not relying on the combat as heavily as it could have. So with all of that said, I do think there's a lot of incentivization to explore, but it's not by any means even an avowed level of an open world or anything like that.
Okay. All right. Sam Heaney, you got any questions about South of Midnight you want to ask Sam?
Sam obviously telepathically sniped my question. I was going to ask that Compulsion, a history of very conceptually cool games that kind of, I'll put it nicely, falter in terms of the gameplay. We Happy Few is the most recent example, is really awesome, Bioshock-esque world, very unique. And then the gameplay, I mean, there was plenty of issues with We Happy Few, but the gameplay wasn't quite there to support the themes. I was going to ask do you think that they have prioritized the story and the setting and the world and the music and all of that more in this game, and the combat is there to support it, or are they trying to create a more well-rounded sort of 50-50 split almost?
I think they have wholeheartedly leaned into the storytelling and the world building and the lore and everything that they are known for. I think they're sticking to their guns when it comes to that. I do think, and keep in mind, I haven't played any other Compulsion games to any point that I can speak to them, but based on the track record that you described and the track record that I'm aware of, this feels like it does a much better job of delivering something that gets the job done. It hits the need that it needs to hit for it to be able to deliver the story and keep people going. I don't think that the combat is hindering the game in any way, but that's not to say that it won't hold it back from hitting people's highs that they would hope that it would hit. So that's where I'm at with it right now. But I do want to go deeper into it and see what they've done with it, again, from the start all the way to the end, to see if it evolves more and surprises me. But I'm expecting it to be something that kind of maintains that same combat composition across the board from start to finish.
Yeah, like what I'm sort of hoping for, and this might be setting myself up for disappointment, I'm kind of hoping that Compulsion has like a Bloober moment where, they have a lot of games conceptually very cool, nice premises, very unique, and they a bit janky, they don't quite come together, they don't quite stick the landing. South of Midnight seems by far the most promising compulsion game to date, and everything you've just said reassures me that they probably will stick the landing more than they have in the past. And obviously Silent Hill 2 was like a crazy success for Bloober to level them up, but I really hope that South of Midnight is that comparative level up for compulsion.
Yeah, I think that if we're talking about Bloober Team, to set your expectations properly, and this is not me being like derogatory about South of Midnight in any way. This is the medium, not Silent Hill 2. Like
Okay.
that's where I'm at with it.
I
Where
like the medium. So.
That's what I'm saying. I like the medium too. I thought it was a good game. Did it have a sufficient amount of jank? Yes, absolutely. But the story was cool. I like the premise of it.
Sure.
And so I think that's where I'm at going into South of Midnight, where it's a good game. It's not going to be a perfect game based on what I've played so far, but there is a lot there to love. This is not going to be one of those things where everybody on TikTok is like, dang, we were wrong kind of thing. Like if you've seen the preview, if you've watched what I've done or what other people have done, you can kind of get a feel for where we're going with that. So I think it's going to be the best compulsion game to date, but I don't know if it's going to hit those highs that a lot of people, especially in the Xbox community, I mean, this has been one that people are like, throwing around as the end all be all. This is the greatness. I think it's going to be a killer indie level style game, but I'm curious where it lands at the end of the day.
Can I just say, I do worry that some people have hyped South of Midnight up a little too much, because like I think it looks good, and I'm glad other people think it looks good. But I did hear people were like, "Oh, I think it's gonna be a sleeper hit." Like maybe we need to, chill. Just let it be. Like if it comes out, it's a 7 and 8. Like be happy. Like I'll give a round of applause if compulsion hits that.
Yeah. And I mean, on my YouTube video, I said, is this 2025's Hi-Fi Rush? And I think that whenever I phrase that, I don't mean in terms of like the combat or anything. I think this is going to be one of those games where you look back on it. And when I think about I think it was 2023 that Hi-Fi Rush came out. When I think about Hi-Fi Rush, like that was one of those things where looking back at the repertoire of the year, I know it was nominated for tons of stuff, but like it was one of those things where I'm like, yeah, there were all these good games and Hi-Fi Rush was great. I think looking at 2025, I'm going to be like Doom: The Dark Ages, absolutely phenomenal. XYZ, name off the other big games that are coming out of Avowed, etc. But man, South of Midnight was something really special. I think that's my comparison for Hi-Fi Rush, where I feel like it's got a ton of potential to be really, really popular in the gaming community. And looking at the entire slate, it's going to be in a lot of conversations around some of the best games of the year. Will it be in the best of the best? TBD, more to come. But very interesting preview though. I wasn't sure what to expect going in, but I'm satisfied with what I got coming out. I sound like I'm not satisfied, but I am satisfied with what I got coming out.
I think you've been very fair overall.
Phenomenal.
Luke Lore of the Xbox Expansion Pass, who also reviewed Avowed. Go check out his review after the show if you haven't already. He did a great review over there. He wrote in and said, having seen Sam's video of South of Midnight and the reviews of Avowed, I think Xbox is making great games. Do you think the masses will notice? I don't, because both lack the big IP impact or studio clout for mass attention.
I'll give it to Sam Heaney for this one because I've been talking for a while. We'll start with you.
Sure. Being a PlayStation guy, I'll use a very recent example. I think it's the same reason that people thought that the state of play that just happened was mid. Because the game that was revealed at the end wasn't the big one, right? It was Housemarque's game, which, if you're in the sphere, is very big in the same way that Avowed and South of Midnight hopefully are going to be both very big for the Xbox community. But on the wider spectrum, I don't think it's going to have that drastic of an impact in the same way that Seros for Housemarque isn't the big splash that people were hoping for. Housemarque isn't a known name, neither is Compulsion, So I think that, but again, like I said with my Avowed opinion, that it's sort of but also very good. Two things can be true at once, right? Where the games can do very well and be big for the community and not have drastic impacts on the ecosystem at large. I think that that's sort of just where we're at. And I don't know that, I would hope at least that Xbox isn't setting those expectations for these games. And they sort of know roughly where they're going to land in terms of their impact. Fingers crossed. So that's probably where I would be. I think it's okay that these games aren't seismic megaton things because they weren't designed to be.
They do feel very much to me like, let's make good to great games for Game Pass and not to capture the zeitgeist. We like they never have come across to me like, oh, we need to make a game of the year 10 out of 10, Baldur's Gate 3, whatever, like that sort of game. We need something that's good for the Xbox audience, the Game Pass audience, to keep you engaged while you wait for something like Doom, which I do think is one of those game of the year style get. Like that's a big game coming out. Fable's another one that I think has more name recognition, more cachet with the Xbox audience, certainly because that's a known IP from Playground. Like these games feel very much like the games you just play while you're waiting for the bigger so-called games to arrive. And I don't mean that in a bad way. And I know it sounds bad some way, but like they can be really good games. They can be fun games and they could be awesome games. Some that I'll look back and like, oh man, I really love these games. But when I'm putting them at the end of the year, like, oh, what's my top 5 games? They might make it, they might not. It depends on like, do the big AAA games that Xbox is really betting on, do those hit? That's how I'm viewing it.
Yeah, I think I would probably agree there. I think that the cool thing about Xbox and their position as a part of Microsoft and how much money they have coming in is that if you have your Call of Duty and your World of Warcraft and your big Activision Blizzard titles, those are your money makers. And of course, like, I mean, Candy Crush in 3 days covers the cost of making South of Midnight. You know, like they have enough other things cooking out there to cover the cost of these little experimental titles. I mean, looking at Obsidian, if you pitched Pentiment at PlayStation, brother, come on now. Like, you're not getting that greenlit, you know? Facts. And I didn't like Pentiment. Like, no one likes, no, I'm just kidding. People like Pentiment.
I platinumed it.
I mean, look at this guy. But
I platinum most things, though, so I'm not sure what that means.
But with Pentiment as an example, like that's a very art house kind of game where clearly the developers that made that had a passionate idea that they wanted to go after, and Xbox is in a unique position to greenlight that kind of thing. And I think the Compulsion is a studio built around that idea. Like they have unique ideas that aren't like anything they've done before, and they'll take it to whoever they have to go to get approval, and then they get approval because they have the budget to do that kind of thing, and it may or may not take off. Same thing happened with Hi-Fi Rush, where boom, that was a sleeper, random, I think it was Game of the Year nominee a couple of times here over there. So stuff like that, I think that again, Call of Duty, Doom, the big hits that you know are going to be hits, are able to kind of subsidize these smaller projects and help them keep these things moving. So I think that's probably where they hit. I think the expectation they've got for it is that, you know, they're trying to get more of these wins in terms of ratings, in terms of reception, and build up their reputation. Do these move the needle? I don't think South of Midnight's going to be the thing that Xbox looks back on and they're like, that is when Game Pass started putting out money. Like it'll be a great addition, but I don't think it's going to be the thing that sells subscriptions.
I almost view it like Hellblade 2 for this year, where I think like people got a little ahead of themselves about like what Hellblade 2 was. Oh, it's going to be this God of War style game. And like, it was Hellblade. Like if you played Hellblade 1, it was Hellblade. So that's kind of how I'm feeling like South of Midnight. You know, it's a cheaper title, cheaper price point as well, shorter game. I imagine it'll go to PlayStation at some point. Like, at this point, it's just a given. And like I've been seeing rumors of Hellblade 2, like, oh, it could be there by April. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, please put it out there. Like I want more people to play that game specifically, because it kind of sucks when the game comes out for the Xbox ecosystem and then nobody talks about it after a week. And like, it's a game that like I liked. I understand most people didn't, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I think that's what I hate the most about it is that for Avowed specifically as the biggest example, I love the fact that games like Doom or whatever other third party, I say third party, available on other platforms, not just a first party game, available on Xbox exclusively. I like the fact that it takes the onus off of the platform and it puts it on the game and the quality. And like, I would love to have more people talking about Avowed and thinking about somebody who gets a ton of comments across different stuff. Like, I don't don't want to see Xbox fanboy accusations flying around. Like, talk about the game, talk about the actual piece of content that we're all accessing here and assessing. And so I hope that as Xbox leans more into the third parties, I would love to see, instead of South of Midnight being perceived as another Xbox whatever whenever it comes out with the reception that it gets, I would love to be able to see actual intellectual conversation on the type of game that it is and get the fanboyism out of there. So I want them to lean more into that, getting them there sooner. And we're in this weird in-between stage right now where, like, I guarantee you in a couple of months, everybody's going to be like, oh, Forza Horizon 5 is great. It's been great, man. You're just playing it for the first time.
I do very much hope that a lot of that rhetoric dies down, like, oh, Xbox games are bad, because they're going everywhere now. Like, you can no longer just like crap on a game solely because it's on Xbox, because it's going to be on PlayStation.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be very interested when Starfield comes to PlayStation to see how the narrative shifts about 3 months later, whenever, you know, everybody's like, wait, it's pretty good. Never mind. It's actually not that bad of a game.
No more calling it midfield, everyone. All right.
And I see Silkenet calling me out in the chat for my cowardice to put face mushrooms. Sam, I don't know how you did your character. I didn't mean to do the John Cena thing over here. But I didn't know if you went with the face mushrooms or not. I completely disabled all of the weird godlike stuff on my character in Avowed because I don't want to run around like a Last of Us, enemy where I'm trying to get that. Yeah, I'm good on the cordyceps. So that was just me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of those options look all that great, but I did stick with, I got a whole load of branches coming out the top of my head.
Okay, I can back that.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's roll into our last topic for the night. PlayStation had a state of play yesterday. We did a live react, so if you want our live reactions, go check that out. The VOD is up. But most of the games they showed are coming to Xbox, so we got a quick roundup. Stop me when you hear a game you'd like to chat about a little more. All right, Sam. All right, you're getting on the multi-plat games from Xbox. All right, you can God knows PlayStation ain't giving you any first-party games.
The life raft.
Yeah. All right. So first we saw Monster Hunter Wilds for the 7,960th time, coming February 28th, 2025. I have nothing else to say about Monster Hunter Wilds, guys.
Couldn't care less.
Thank you. Shinobi Art of Vengeance, the game I thought was Ninja Gaiden Ragebound at first, is releasing August 29th, 2025. This is part of that Sega Revival initiative. I watched the showcase back with different live reacts more than not, and I'm like, okay, art style looks really good. It's not one that I'm like, oh, I need to go out and play day one, but it's on the radar.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with it. It's different Rogue Prince of Persia with a Streets of Rage twist on it. So I'll probably play it. I thought it'll look good. I'm down.
Yep, same.
All right, next up, Sega kept rolling. Sonic Racing Cross Worlds is coming this year. They announced a network test. It's a kart racer with Sonic in it, and it doesn't make much. He can run fast. Just make him run.
I mean, that's fair. This is by the way, at this point in the state of play, did you guys get like the bit rate just absolutely tanked?
Yes.
And I'm like, what am I? Is this 360p on a PS3 server? No, what are we doing here?
We were doing the live react, and I noticed that, and I was like, is it my computer? But then it happened for Sonic, and there was one other game it happened for, and I was like, the bit rate on this is so bad right now, because I watched it on other people, so I was like, okay, it wasn't me. It was like, the state of play was just bad.
Yeah, the dude at Sega rendered that thing in Windows Movie Maker and just shot it off, and he was like, yeah, 480, let's go.
Game I'm sure both of you care about, Digimon Storytime Stranger, coming 2025. I can't be bothered to care about this. Looks bad.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
I actually had to cover the Digimon Survive game for IGN a couple of years back. That was all right.
I heard that one was okay.
This one doesn't look
good. Yeah, it doesn't look good. Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii has a demo out on February 14th. If you want to spend your Valentine's Day, save progress does not carry over, so that's a pass from me.
Boo.
Sam, this one might be a rare alley. Splitgate 2 Open Alpha drops February 27th.
Let's go. I'm ready. I'm very excited about this game, and I really enjoyed Splitgate 1. I'm curious to see how they evolve that gameplay, because this one's supposed to feel more like it's not quite Halo anymore. Like it was just Halo with portals. Now it's kind of like 2012 Call of Duty with portals. So we'll see how that pans out, but I'm very excited.
What did I want to say about Splitgate? My God, I lost my train of thought here. Sorry. Sam Heaney, Splitgate, anything.
I can't save you, Kev.
Damn it! Damn it! Well, I had a comment about Split. I after watching back, they have a really cool mode. I think where it's 3 teams of 8. Which when I first watched it, I was like, "Oh, it's big team battle." I'm like that little spin on big team battle. So thought that was pretty cool. Borderlands 4 is coming September 23rd, 2025. Sam Heaney, I know you're excited for this one. You and my brother there, Kyle, were pretty hyped to get a release date. You're like, more Borderlands.
Amen. I mean, it is disappointing that it is just more Borderlands, but as someone who thought that Borderlands 3 was just more Borderlands and played the hell out of that game, like, sure, I'll be there. Interesting that they said that it's coming out in September, because one of the Take-Two things we saw recently suggested that GTA might have been before Borderlands. So I don't know whether that's changed. I mean, you would imagine it must have, unless GTA is like ridiculously imminent, like a summer game, but that would be crazy, right?
Yeah.
I'm saying November for GTA.
Yeah, because I think that, GTA 5 was September, right? That was a late September game, I think, back when it was like September 13th, 2011, 14, whatever that was. Must have been 14. It had to be 14.
Gonna make me feel old again.
I'm going to Google it right now.
Release
Came out
date.
September 2013.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, I mean, that could be I could see that being a, God, if Borderlands 4 comes out the week before GTA 6, that's going to be a pretty wild little lineup right there, or vice versa, whatever you got. I'm excited for this one. I've never been into Borderlands, but it seems like it's a good place to jump in. I had paralysis before, where it's like I liked getting one gun that I was really good with because I played Call of Duty back when like Borderlands 2 was blowing up. And so the idea of like, following the ooh piece of candy approach of like getting a new gun every 3 seconds kind of threw me off. But now I'm going for it. I played Diablo. Let's just get the gear churning. I'm ready.
So my brother Kyle loves these games. He's 100% at every single one of them, some multiple times because they've been re-released. But he ended up with modded gear for like a lot of them. So he was like invincible. And then he opened a shop. Like he would farm guns and people would like pay him. And then they would like trade the guns. Like, yeah, people go hard for Borderlands. Only Borderlands 1. Okay. All right, Kyle. Sorry. All right. Yeah, I have no interest in Borderlands 4, but it is 4-player co-op, so we got a little crew forming here if people want to play together. All right. Directive 8020 coming October 2nd, 2025. Give it to me. Feed it directly to me, Supermassive. This is one of my highlights of the show. Been looking for more of this. It looks like Alien meets The Thing. Give it the Dark Pictures choice and consequence. Apparently, there's more gameplay in this one. There's some stealth, apparently, that's going to be in there, like actually having to sneak away from the monster. So I'm excited. October is the perfect time for this game, especially because it's October 2nd, and that actually gives you time to play the scary game before Halloween. I hate when games are released like we're coming out October 30th, just in time for Halloween. I'm like, it's basically November at that point, bro. Like I'm get the Christmas decorations are going up, right?
Yeah, I'm excited about this one. I say that about every Supermassive game though, and then it just fades into the backlog and just goes into the ether. But this one looked like Dead Space plus Alien, so I'm kind of into that. I like some good human mutilation, so we'll see if this one makes it onto the playlist.
Everybody clip that.
Unfortunately,
mutilation.
I'm exactly the same as Sam. I was like, Until Dawn, that's great. I'll play the next one, and I just haven't.
Yeah,
none of them.
Oh, that's wild. I've played Man of Medan, I think 3 times.
So you're a sadist. Okay.
I've played Little. No, it's good. I like a hot take here. I like most of the Dark Picture games more than Until Dawn.
Damn.
I think Little Hope is the only one I actively dislike. I'm like, this game was bad. because it's 4 hours long and 3 of it is walking down a road. Swear to God, I'm not even lying. Like, don't play Little Hope. Bad game.
Understood. I probably wouldn't anyway.
Good. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of
Don't
you.
have to tell me twice. I got you covered. No worries.
Onimusha 2 Samurai's Destiny Remastered coming May 23rd. We also got another trailer for Onimusha Way of the Sword, which looked pretty good. I'm not an Onimusha guy. Felt weird that they could have just showed this at that Capcom showcase that was like last week, but what are they going to do, you know?
Yeah. I'm out on 2. I'm in for Way of the Swords, though. I think it's what it's called. This the new one. The remake remastered looks like a PS2 game because it is one, and then the new one looks really good. So I'm gonna play that one.
We were joking as they're like remastered with HD graphics. I'm like, where are the HD graphics? Because this game still looks like crap.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, ditto.
Warriors Abyss is available now on all platforms. This is a Koei Tecmo Warriors game meets roguelite elements. Looked pretty neat. I know Brandon was in on it. Doesn't do much for me. I'm not a Warriors guy unless you give me a IP attachment such as Fire Emblem, and I don't like roguelites. So I'm gonna move on from that one unless you guys are interested.
Keep it rolling.
Great. Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater coming August 28th, 2025. Who could have known? Who could have possibly seen this trailer coming? I can't believe it. We definitely didn't say this release date last week. So Darwin's Paradox. He plays an octopus coming 2025. Konami's still making games, boys. Who knew?
Why did they make Inside with an octopus?
I don't like Inside. I know this is like I might get crucified for that, but like Limbo and Inside were not for me.
I've just seen this. It's too many. It's too many. I've had too many. You know what I mean? Like I'm good. I'm fine. I don't need this type of game anymore.
Too many slices.
Too many slices.
Hell is Us. I want to say Souls-like game coming September 4th, 2025. Kind of gave me Death Stranding vibes too. Almost like they were like, what if we made a Strand Souls game? Definitely not for me, but looked really weird.
I'm real into this one.
Yeah, I knew you would be, man.
I'm very into it, man. This is going down my little. This is going down my little rabbit hole of like it definitely has that Souls kind of gameplay from what we've seen so far. I'm interested in the weird ass Kojima style story. I'm totally down for this. Very excited about Hell Is Us. Probably my highlight of the show outside of Housemarque. This is probably my favorite game I saw.
Yeah, it's also like if you get into the weeds of looking at the details they've released about this game, you've got that little drone that you control with a tablet. As far as we can tell, it's essentially open world, but they are going like the Ghost of Tsushima emergent thing, where you really have no indicators or HUD or anything, so you are just exploring and stumbling across things. And I think that with the vibes they're giving and the combat is day one.
You guys have fun with that. It is coming to Xbox, so you know. Another game that I think might be for one or both of you, Lies of P Overture DLC coming summer 2025. It's a prequel to the main game, from what I've been reading.
Been counting down since December 2023. I'm so excited for this. We loved Lies of P, and this is again a day one. I'm dropping everything and immediately playing it.
Yeah. Had to finish Lies of P 5.5 times for IGN, and I still love it. So that's a testament. So very excited.
Next up, my game of the show personally, Tides of Annihilation reveal trailer. Now in development is all we have. When this was revealed, I was like, okay, this might be a Souls game. But as we went on, very character action game, and things have come out about it since then. It's apparently 30 plus hours. It is very Devil May Cry inspired, which I love to hear. They were just feeding it to me. They also said Stellar Blade. They were talking about customizing the outfits and the character there, so they know what they're doing here. I was worried when we were watching it. I was like, oh, this is a PlayStation exclusive for sure. Like this looked like a game that they would throw some money at, but no, it is coming to Xbox. Happy to see it. I will definitely support this in 2027 when this game finally comes out.
Yeah, looks solid. Is this the one that had like a little bit of Shadow of the Colossus DNA in it? Where you're like,
yes,
I'm in for that.
Yeah,
I like that. I'm ready. I'm down.
Yeah, a little bit of Final Fantasy, even a little bit of like God of War 3 kind of big, massive monsters to fight. Yep.
Abiotic Factor gets us 1.0 release this summer and is coming to Game Pass. This has been in Steam Early Access. It's a survival crafting game because we don't have enough of those.
I mean, it's got 5 stars on Steam right now.
It's like well reviewed. All right.
Oh.
Listen, if anyone at the network is interested, I could probably get you a code. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, I'll just trust the reviews personally. I'm fine. Thank you, though.
All right. Blueprints is an indie game that I've been hearing a lot about in the last few weeks. Coming spring 2025. It was announced for PS Plus, but it's also coming to Game Pass. Probably not my type of game. I think it's a very puzzle heavy game, so I'm probably out on it. But Sam, you look very excited for this.
Yeah, I played the Steam demo a couple of weeks back, and it is phenomenal. It is like a procedural escape room puzzler, where you are building. It's almost like you're selecting doors in Hades runs, but the route you're selecting which room you gain access to next, and that dictates the puzzles that you solve and what tools you have available to solve things in prior rooms. It is very, very good.
Super cool. Yeah, I don't know if it's a me game, but
yeah,
looks good.
This next one might be a you game because I've thought about you every time I've seen the trailer. I thought it was Marathon, but it's Metal Eden coming May 6th, 2025.
I am very into this.
Yeah. I'm so. Oh man, love it, love it.
I am very into this. I'm trying to figure. So I didn't look into it. I was just like, oh, that looks good. But is this a multiplayer or is it like a single player?
I don't know. I assumed it was single player based on the trailer.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. That's exactly what I want. And I feel like, and I might make a video on this at some point. I want PlayStation, and obviously this is like a third party thing, but when we talk about live service games and people moving in that direction, I don't want another FPS marathon style thing. Like I don't want to I would rather have Marathon as a single player FPS like this. Like this is the kind of thing that I want more of, that has that action that I get from a COD or something similar to it, but it's not the, like, I don't have to grind a battle pass. Like I just want a good game, man. And this looks like that. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, for sure.
Amen.
Lastly, the last game coming to Xbox anyway, there were a few more announcements, but Mind's Eye from the director of the older GTA games is coming 2025. This trailer did absolutely nothing for it. I'm going to be honest. This was probably one of my, and I've, again, rewatched this multiple times. I do not care about this game in the slightest. And I actually saw some people like, oh, if you're a hardcore gamer, you know who Leslie is. And I was like, I don't think that's true, because no one I talked to knew who this Leslie guy was.
Yeah, no idea. I mean, it looks okay, I guess. This is the one that's like future GTA, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know, man. This looks like one of those ones that is just gonna, I mean, like, I don't want to be like a negative Nancy over here, but this is gonna launch, it's gonna tank, and it's gonna have costed a lot of money, or have cost a lot of money. And I just don't feel like it had like a very large level of jank for a reveal trailer. Like it just didn't look that good to me, but just my 2 cents.
Also, why was he shooting the cars so much? He wasn't shooting the enemies. He just focused on blowing up the cars every single gameplay snippet. I'm like, what's going on here,
I don't know
guys?
what to tell you.
Some would say killing 2 birds with 1 stone, take out the cars, you take out the people. I think, I do think it looked a bit rough, but there's something in me that says like, this is either going to tank, like Sam said, or it could be one of the next biggest things, like one of the biggest games of the year. I'm inclined to believe it's going to tank, but I feel like there is just enough doubt in my mind that makes me think that it could actually turn out to be pretty decent.
It's kind of sad that our initial like thought process is it's probably gonna fail.
I mean, it's just like when you're putting this out in the same year as GTA 6.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna pray for you, man. Like I don't know what to tell you.
Actually, that's a good point.
If I'm spending, I don't know how much this game is. I would imagine $70. Hold on, let me see. I'm clicking on Steam.
This
no
is a Callisto Protocol Dead Space situation.
Very good comparison. Very good comparison. Like I just don't see this if it's a full $70 game. I mean, even a $50 game. Let's just say it's that. I just don't see this being something people invest in when money's tight and there's so many games to play.
it feels closer to like the Saints Row reboot
Yeah.
or
God.
Mafia 3 than it does GTA, and that's not a good sign.
Yeah, I would agree.
Well, that is the state of play, everyone. Those are all the games coming to Xbox anyway. They had their PlayStation exclusive games, but can I just say, Lost Soul aside, I'm there for
Yeah.
it. That game looks dope.
Mm.
That game looks dope. But that will do it for the show. Extra long episode today, guys. Thank you for hanging in with us. Thank you for the awesome Avowed coverage, you two. I appreciate it. But JamPackSam, can you let everyone know where they can find you, my friend?
Yeah, you can find me at JamPackSam everywhere you find content. Threads, Blue Sky, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all those fun places. I'm real tired. It's been a wild week. I've had a lot of previews going out. And I'm excited to continue playing Avowed this weekend and put together a full review sometime in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, it's very grateful this week. A lot of cool things coming. So I'm excited about that. But and then you can always find me here. Very excited to chat stuff, whether I'm in slow motion or not, depending on the week. It's always great to be here.
It's Silken has said this, but we do appreciate you going stop motion for the South of Midnight preview.
I mean, what can I say? I really had to lean into it. You know what I mean? So
The method acting is crazy.
I'm a man of the people.
I don't even know how you manage that. Like, just hate your camera enough. Like, all right, Sam Heaney, thank you for guesting and letting us know your thoughts on Avowed. I'm sure you have 100 more hours to put in over the next 3 days for guides. But can you let everyone know where they can find you in the meantime?
Yeah, thank you for having me. People can find me anywhere and everywhere at Sam Heaney, Heaney.
All right. And you can obviously find him at No Limits, a PlayStation podcast.
Of course.
Part of the Save the Game Media Network. You can find me at the Muffin Mon. That's a 1-7I, O-7A on all social media, mainly Blue Sky these days. I genuinely almost shut down my Twitter account the other day. I was like, should I just delete it? Should I just, should I just do it? But
tempting.
I didn't. So find me over there. You can find us at Save the Game Media over on Blue Sky to stay up to date with all of our latest content. Until next week, we will see you. Goodbye.